Is your business up to code? Is it in compliance? The IRS wants to know. But what exactly does the IRS want to know? And what does that mean for you in your business? Well, today I'm going to walk you through the expectation the IRS has for small businesses to ensure that they are legit and doing things the right way. Let's go. What is going on, family? It's your favorite uncle cousin, Tyrone Gregory, the self-employed tax guy, here to help you become successfully self-employed. And that is what this channel is all about. So if you are newly self-employed, getting into the game, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, because this is the type of content that your favorite uncle cousin talks about. So with that being said, let me dive right into the content. Listen, as a tax professional, or should I say as tax professionals, because it's not just me, our role is intermediaries between the taxpayers and the IRS. It is our job to make sure that all the information that's going to the IRS is true and accurate to the best of the taxpayers' knowledge. And when it comes to business, the IRS does have certain expectations, and it is our job, again, to make sure that the information that we're sending them is one, everything is true and correct, and it's on the up and up. So when it comes to business, the IRS knows that there's a lot of room for potential errors and fraud. And because of that, they give us the task, they task us to make sure that we are asking the proper questions, again, to make sure that the businesses are doing what they're supposed to do, right? And this responsibility is not just on the taxpayer. This responsibility also falls on us as the tax professional, as the tax preparers, because if we fail to ask these questions, if we fail to just let it slide and don't do any due diligence, they can hit us with penalties, sanctions, and we can even lose our license as professionals and thereby lose our own job. So this is a very serious thing when it comes to being a business. And the thing of it is, if you're able to answer these questions set forth by the IRS, then your business is in a pretty good position. On the other hand, if you're not able to answer these questions that's been set forth by the IRS, you really have to ask the question, how real is this business? How serious are you being with this business? Are you just doing something? Is this just a side hustle? This is not going to fund your lifestyle. This is not something you're taking serious because, well, let me show you. So before I get too far, let me explain what you're about to see. In my software, the one I use to prepare people's taxes, there's a list of questions, and I'm sure other softwares may have the same concept. The list may not be verbatim, it may not be word for word, but the idea is still there. We still have to do due diligence. And because of that, every software has this built in. So I'm going to show you the version that's in my software, and we're going to go line by line on each question, understand what that means, and hopefully you can answer it. So without any further delays, let's go ahead and get to it. All right, so here we are on the screen. You can see here it is, the due diligence. Now, looking at it, you can see when the name is I just made something up, right? So we don't have to worry about that. Notice the first question that we're asking. Again, this is for us as tax preparer. This is what we have to ask you, especially when you're getting the earned income tax credit. This is a due diligence that comes a part of that to make sure that this is a legitimate thing, right? We want the IRS is making sure that, hey, if we're going to do this, is this legitimate? And they verify, or should I say they validate the legitimacy by asking these questions. So again, let's go ahead and take a look at them. 1, does the income appear to be sufficient enough to support the taxpayer and the qualifying children, right? And look at it says, if no, some additional inquiries may be needed. Okay, but let me scroll down. Let's start here. Taxpayers with self-employment income. First question, how long have you owned your business? That right there is a very important question because there is something called the 9 profit factors where the IRS is like, all right, is this a real business or is this a hobby? Now, time does not necessarily mean a bad thing, right? Like if you just started your business, that's perfectly fine. But do note, the IRS is keeping track because if so many things happen, if we keep taking all these losses every single year, what all these influencers keep telling you to do, the IRS is going to raise an eyebrow and things may change, right? So keep that in mind. They want us to give a brief description of the business. Again, what is it that you do? Where do you conduct your business? Do you conduct your business at home? Is it in the city? Where are you conducting your business? Notice they are gathering a lot of information, which these are questions, again, you should be able to answer. So far, they're easy. What services do you perform? Okay, how much do you charge for these services? If it varies, it varies. There is no need to make up something on the spot. Like if you have a different set of, like say, for example, if you do hair, right? Or better yet, for my people in the retail industry, a t-shirt will cost different from a hoodie, right? The design on the shirt is going to be different based on if you have to do it or not, if it's so it's okay to say that the prices vary, but you should still be able to answer the question, how much do you charge? Or at least keep that in the back of your mind. 3 asks, approximately how many clients do you have and how often do you provide services for them? Now, even though this is just as an IRS due diligence question, as a business owner, you should be able to answer that question, how many clients do you have? If you're not keeping track, how will you know the customer acquisition cost? Again, I'm the numbers guy. We want to get into really knowing everything. This is why when I'm sitting down with taxpayers at the desk and we go through this questionnaire, I can tell who's really on it and who's not. Because if people are like, I don't know, then if you don't know your business. That's just as simple as that. So let's get back to it. How often do you provide services for each client? Again, if we're thinking about customer acquisition costs and the lifetime value of a client, that question right there is going to help you answer it, because how often are you replenishing? How often are they paying you? How often are you doing something to be on the up and up when it comes to your clients? Number 4, what types of items do you need to operate? Okay, here is where we talk about getting your inventory. Do you have a clear grasp and understanding of your inventory? What do you need as a business owner to properly do your job? If you can't answer that question, definitely something is wrong. So keep that in the back of the mind as we go through that. And the next one says, how often are these items replenished? Again, when we talk about inventory management as a business, how often are these items replenished is extremely important. So again, just to, embed this in here, yes, we're talking about the IRS and what they're asking to see if this is legitimate. But beyond that, let me put myself here. Beyond that, as we go through these questions, these are things you should be asking yourself that, okay, this is my business. How am I addressing these things? This is a logistic part of the business. This is kind of like a business plan. Answering these questions that we're going through now will help you develop a business plan. And again, it doesn't have to be nothing fancy. As we go through this, you can write these down, answer these questions, store them in a notebook, type them on a file, put them on a Google Doc, something, but store it. So when you have questions like what's going on with my business, you can refer back to these questions, the answers you gave, and that becomes your plan of action. So let's continue with it. Line 5 says, do you travel for business? Woo, this is a good one right here. Travel in a sense of Do you go from state to state? Do you go outside of your tax home, which tax home is a different conversation? Ask your tax professional regarding what is considered a tax home for your unique scenario and situation. But do you travel for business? Yes or no? But look at the one that's next to it. How do you keep track of your miles? Let me put this back out here so you can see that big enough. How do you keep track of your miles? That question right there is probably, I'm going to say 90% of the time can't get answered. I'm going to even say 99% of the time does not get answered, because for whatever reason, entrepreneurs do not like tracking their miles, even though it is one of the greatest deductions. I literally just had a client this week that came to me because they went to TurboTax. They had a balance due. But then when they came to me and I sat there and we're going through this questionnaire and I'm pulling things out like, okay, let's talk about this. What you do, walk me through your day. And I'm like, okay, well, how many miles do you drive back and forth? Like, how do you keep track? Because it was a mobile business. I'm like, you're mobile. You use your car to go handle your job to get this money. How are you tracking your miles? Oh, I didn't even know. I didn't track my miles. And after we put in the miles, they little balance due that they had ended up being a refund. So tracking your miles, again, yes, the IRS wants to know, because they want to make sure we're not just throwing in some random numbers, but tracking your miles is also for your benefit. So please, people, please make sure that you are tracking your miles. Back to it. Then also under 5 it asks, when and where do you have to travel for business? So, that's a very easy question. Number 6, now we're getting into some of the nitty gritty. Put this up here. Number 6, can you provide any documentation to substantiate your business? Can you provide anything other than saying that, yes, I have a business. Yes, I'm a business. I started a business. I do hair. I babysit. I do whatever. Can you provide any other documentation to help substantiate that claim? Okay. Now let's look at this again. It says you have like some options, business cards. Now notice how the IRS is saying you do not have to have anything fancy. Notice there is no checkbox for an LLC, an S Corp, C Corp. None of that. They just want to know, look, if you're a legitimate business owner, you should at least have one of these things: business card, business stationery, a receipt book with the company header on it, right? A business license or an occupational license. For example, if you do hair, then you would have your hair license from the state. If you're in retail selling t-shirts, then you should have a wholesaler's license or seller's permit. If you are just a brick and mortar store, then you should have a business license from the city. One of those things you should have. Look at that. Other tax returns. Do you have a sales tax return from the state where you've remitted your sales tax? Do you have an excise employment tax? Like you have 941s that you've submitted because you have payroll, or even if you submitted 1099s for your independent contractors, you have something that shows that you were in business, another tax return that you filed. Advertisement, newspapers, flyer, they need to update, because advertisement also should include any social media ads that you put out there, anything like that, Google, whatever, or list any other documentation you can provide to substantiate your business. That's, people, you should have. So let's get back to it. Ooh, we're starting to get good now. We're starting to get into the nitty gritty. Number 7, a big one. Who maintains the business records? Meaning, is it you or is it a tax professional? 99.9% of the time, the answer to this question is going to be the taxpayer, because it's their business. But let's look at the next question. Let's bring up back up here. Number 8, do you maintain separate bank accounts for personal and business transactions? And look what follows. If yes, meaning yes, you keep a separate bank account, which is what you should be doing. Just say what you should be doing. In what form were records provided? If no, And here's where I ask this question and people kind of giggle because they can't answer it, because they don't have a separate bank account. If no, how do you differentiate between personal and business transactions and monetary assets? I want all of you, if you don't take nothing else from this video, to answer that question. If you don't have a separate bank account, how are you identifying what's business, what's personal? Okay? You have to be prepared to answer that question. If you can't answer that question, not even for the IRS's purposes, but for your own purpose, that is a key indicator of a very serious problem. All right? So the next question that we have to be on the hook for, this is a question to us. Notice, it asks, were satisfactory records of income and expenses provided? That is a question that we are responsible for as the tax preparer. Answering, look, did they provide you? They just gave like questions 1 through 9 was all about you answering the questions about your business. Now they're asking us, well, yeah, they said all this, but did you see it? Did you see it with your own eyes? Did you look? Were satisfactory records provided? Did you physically take this? So we on the hook. If we say yeah and we didn't, we hoping you do got some satisfactory records in case it ever gets called into questions. Because if you don't and we said yes, again, we get hit with penalties, sanctions, and could possibly lose our business. So we have to make sure that that is answered. So for you who have businesses and you ain't filed your taxes yet, make sure that you take some sort of records, and let me put it back on so you can see what they're asking for, to your tax provider. Accounting records, that can be a P&L from QuickBooks, Xero, Waze, FreshBooks, one of them. Paid invoices, if you're using like some sort of invoicing software. Computer records, and when I say computer records, I'm thinking Excel, Microsoft Word, something that shows expenses, any car and truck expenses, logbooks. Again, that's me. Logbooks and ledgers, those are like for the pen and paper folks like myself, but I'm more digital now. And then, of course, business bank account. So if you have a business bank account, notice that is a satisfactory record. Okay, your business bank account is a satisfactory record. The only reason I don't recommend using your business bank account as a form of tracking is because not all the time does the business bank account show what was purchased. Sometimes it's just a line item with a bunch of numbers and you have no idea what that was. So yes, the business bank account works, but it's best to connect it to a bookkeeping system so you can clearly identify the transaction. Okay. So again, we have yes or no. Were satisfactory records provided? If yes, we have to check which one. Look at what it says here. If no, if satisfactory records of income and expenses were not provided, then how did we, as the tax professionals, A, determine the amount of income, and B, determine the amount of expenses? All right here. See that? So that's one of them things like, well, they ain't give you no records. How do we know this is the true business? How do we know this is legitimate? How do we know they making up something for purposes of trying to get the earned income tax credit? How do we know? We have to answer that question. Okay. Moving back on. Line 10 is, don't want to move too fast. Line 10 says, well, Form 1099 NECs. Do you have any Form 1099 NECs to support the income? Now let's think about that. If you mark yes to 10A, meaning that you actually received the 1099, I personally, even though it doesn't say it right there, I personally believe that a 1099 is also a satisfactory record of income. It's not going to show your expenses, but it is a satisfactory record of income. So a lot of this you can see sometimes can be repetitive, because if you have a 1099 that somebody gave you, that means you were acting in the capacity of an independent contractor, right? That's what the NEC for is non, I forget what, non-employee, something. Y'all, I'm just drew a blank right now. I know what NEC means. Don't come for me. Just drew a blank right now. But anyway, if you get a 1099 NEC, that definitely means that you were treated as an independent contractor and therefore a legitimate business. So saying yes to that is one thing, but notice again, Part B says if you do not, or if you did not receive any 1099s NEC, is it reasonable that the type of business would not? For example, and I'm gonna say this at a risk. There are a lot of businesses that are cash businesses. Cash is king. There's nothing wrong with cash. Cash is still good. But if you're operating in cash only, there's, documentation and substantiation may be a little difficult. So when answering that question, if not, is it reasonable? The answer could be yes, because there are businesses out there that do not have a 1099 NEC coming their way because they didn't fill out a W-9. So that's completely possible. Now we go to, I just went down on page 2 of this here. Line 11, it asks, are the expenses consistent with the type of business? I've been talking about this since day one, since I first made videos on YouTube. The expenses have to match the business. And I always give the example, the kindergarten teacher cannot write off a flamethrower. It just doesn't make sense. The expenses don't match. What is a kindergarten teacher writing off a flamethrower for, right? Like it don't match. Now, it may make sense if the wood shop teacher was writing off a flamethrower, then that's more probable because the expenses would be consistent. So we want to make sure that we're not here. No. As a matter of fact, let me talk to you here. This question is important because the internet influencers will have you writing off the air you breathe. So don't get caught up. You can see the IRS is questioning the validity of the type of expenses. Just because somebody says you can write something off does not mean that you should, because it may come into question. So speaking of questions, the next time you see something on the internet, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, saying write this off, ask the question, has this been validated in court? Okay. All right, let's get back to the questions. So here we are. Line 12 says, are the amount of expenses reasonable? Meaning, are they inflated? Is it on endage average par? Is it within reason, right? Or any expenses, I'm on line 13, are any expenses that are typical for this type of business missing? So for example, if you drive for Uber and we don't have a vehicle log on there, the answer to that is yes, something is missing. Okay, that's very simple. Getting back to the questions here, number 14 says, if nothing is missing, if no or low expenses, why are they so low? We literally have to ask you this question. If you made $40,000, but you wrote off $1, why? How are you? This question is pondering the thought of, how are you in business without spending money? How is it possible? Because no business exists without spending some sort of money. There's always going to be a capital investment when starting a business, always. So you have to spend something. And if the expenses are no to non-existent, that's going to be a flag right there. If the expenses are high or at a loss, so again, we're talking about these losses that you're encouraged to take. If the expenses are high or at a loss, why? We literally have to give an explanation on whether you're missing expenses or if you have expenses, why are they so high? Okay. Again, number 16, expenses high or at a loss. How are you able to pay these expenses and keep this business open? You know what? I'm going to say, shout out to the IRS for that question, because that put an asterisk next to that one. If you got this high or loss, how are you able to run the business? It takes money to make money. So everybody talking about you can pay zero taxes, get this thing down to zero. The IRS is like, well, how are you running the business if you every time you make $1, you spend $1? And that's the question I want to know. Leave it in the comments. Let me know right there. Okay. And then at the bottom, it says listing any other information you can provide related to your business. That's a very generic, like a catch-all. If we miss something, if we as a tax preparer don't really feel comfortable that the questions will answer good enough, line 17 is the catch-all business. So there you have it, people. The questions that the IRS wants to know about your business. Are you in compliance? Are you in code? Are you doing things on the up and up? Is everything what it's supposed to be? But again, like I said earlier, this line of questioning should be taken as a rule guide, like a rubric or something to guide you to say, hey, this is what I need to make sure that my business is on the up and up, that my business is in compliance, that my hustle is organized, okay? Because that is the key, making sure that you're organized, but not just for tax purposes, but for growth, for scalability, for making sure that you can get the bag and keep the bag, per se. And so here's what I'm gonna do. Well, here's what I've done, and I'm about to just let you know it right now. If you cannot answer any of these questions, if any of these questions had you thinking and you're concerned about your business, I'm going to highly suggest that you hop on and join my Organize Your Hustle Masterclass, where I'm teaching entrepreneurs how to answer these questions. In this masterclass, the Organize Your Hustle Masterclass, I'm going to walk you through setting up a business bank account, attaching it to a bookkeeping system, how to set up your chart of accounts, how to reconcile the transactions, how to rerun the reports. So all of these questions become so simple to ask. So do yourself a favor, click on the link. It's somewhere around here. It's either going to be below this video, in the description, in the bio, or somewhere. Wherever you see the link, make sure you click on it. Join the masterclass for Organize Your Hustle, and don't worry about this going forward. So that is it for me. If you have any questions, as always, make sure that you leave a comment somewhere below. And as I said before, make sure that you like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and I will see you in the next one. Love you.
Perfect.